Good evening, I'm Jay Hildebrandt.
And I'm Carol Honus. There is rioting the street.
To drive all the way to Yellowstone or Jack. We're here with Governor Mitt Romney.
Going on here at the Olympic Medals Plaza.
Ordained Gordon B. Hinckley as president. And that was Vice President Bush's. And the Department of Energy is at the cutting edge. Paul Ezra Rhodes' murder case has described.
Well, Todd and Libby, this is indeed water on the fires, trying to slow down the end of Crowley Road pretty well, way down almost by the when the Teton Dam failed.
There's genuine excitement in Rexburg. The highlights of our trip was meeting Peter Jay, ABC Newscast.
I'm embarrassed to say, but the anchor person of the network loves
you, Jay Hildebrandt. What would you most want to know?
News team, Jay Hildebrandt.
To the Crest Creek Nature Trail near
Fireworks have begun. You can see him right with the Elder Quentin L. Cook. I'm Jay Hildebrandt reporting live from Salt Lake.
I'm one of the lucky ones who loves what he does, happy and content with the same career, never wanting to do anything else, and grateful I landed here 35 years ago. I think what attracted me to this career, first of all, is that my family had been involved in theater and drama as I was growing up. So kind of being in front of a camera, I did some television stuff too, and being in front of people was kind of exciting for me. I made my first appearances on television when I was 5 years old in 1959 on a children's TV show my family did in Milwaukee. It was called The Cookie Show. This is my brother, who was Cookie, my sister was Candy, and I was Little Crumb. We didn't have video of the show because back then they didn't even have videotape to record it.
Drivers, help us kids when we're on our bikes. We try to be careful, but sometimes we goof.
When I was 12, I was hired to be the juvenile voice for the Wisconsin Council of Safety to do public service announcements.
Did you know that this was the direction you were going to go from high school? When did you figure it out that this was what you were going to do?
Well, you know, I enjoyed this type of thing, and then I started to major in it when I went to BYU. Then I went on my mission to Germany. And I still remember exactly what really the defining moment was that I knew this is what I wanted to do with my life. It was the last couple of months of my mission, and it was in the summertime, and I had to start registering for classes at BYU because I'd come home from my mission and start there within 2 weeks of when I got back. And so my parents were kind of working with me on that. And I thought I really need to decide what classes I'm going to take, what I'm going to major in at this point. And this had been a possibility. I'd also thought about law or being an orthodontist or some other things. And I thought, I need to decide. And so I was pondering that and thinking about it. And I was sitting in this chapel in Wuppertal, Germany. And they were showing a film strip like they did back in those days. And I still recall very vividly, it was President Kimball talking on the film strip, or maybe it was a German translation. I don't recall that part exactly, but I remember this visual image, seeing the picture we see in the Book of Mormon of King Benjamin up on the tower addressing the people, and the narration that he was saying. You know, it used to be they had towers, and King Benjamin could address hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and then the next film strip slide came up, and it was a TV tower. And he said, but now we can reach the whole world because of this medium of television. And it's, well, like I say, one of those epiphanies sort of things where I thought, this is what I want to do, because it's the kind of career that can really reach a lot of people and change lives, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I decided to pursue it, and as I did, I realized that there was more to it than acting, that there was journalism involved too, and that was a little bit of a shock at first, but then I really got into that as well. You know, doing journalism and knowing how to get the story and informing people of important events in their lives.
Good evening. President Carter was in Davenport, Iowa today, the latest...
In 1977, I began my professional career at KMVT in Twin Falls. In Twin Falls, it was one of the smaller TV markets that there was in the country, and so we, at that point, just had 4 people in the entire news department. A news director, a weatherman, news director was also the sports guy, and then a weekend anchor and another anchor. So 4 people going out and getting all the stories for the day. You know, one person had to work on the week, and we started at 10 o'clock in the morning, ended up at 10:30 at night. And to me, that wasn't all that unusual because I'd been going to school all day and doing homework all night, but later I found out that most people only work about 8 hours a day. But in that situation, it was a great experience for 2.5 years, and I got to do everything from shooting film to doing the weather to doing sports. Just wonderful experience that served me well later in my career.
Well, most people end up jumping around a little bit, and you did at the beginning of your career.
Right.
So what about that? Where did you go from there?
Well, after that, I tried to get a little closer to home in Milwaukee, and I got a job in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which wasn't too far, and stayed there for 4.5 years. And in my case, I kept wanting to go back home to Milwaukee, but this is the kind of business where you can't just decide, I want to go work for a TV station in Milwaukee, because there are 3 stations, there are not that many openings, and every opening there were 150 applicants for, and I just never worked out. But I guess my destiny was not to go to Milwaukee, and then I wanted to make a change, and I saw the ad for the job in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and I thought, well, I've been in Twin Falls, I really enjoyed Idaho, and I thought, well, this was a news director job as well as an anchor, and I could kind of be in charge and of this news department. I thought that would be an interesting challenge, so I came back in 1984, 25 years ago, never dreaming that I'd stay the whole time, but it's been a great place to raise children and get involved in the community, and so we've kind of planted our roots here.
I want to take this time to welcome Jay Hildebrandt to our news team. Jay,
I could never have imagined that April day in 1984 what the future would hold for the next 35 years here.
Today in Washington,
I've covered political stories from Washington, D.C. to Wednesday's child reports in Washington State.
Pioneer trek dawned gray and cloudy.
I've ridden alongside a wagon train in Nebraska to standing beside the red carpet in L.A.
The real work begins for this new governor.
I've been there for breaking news from the state capitol
President Nelson
to major announcements at Temple Square.
I support it.
From presidents,
I support the arms control.
Elder Quentin L. Cook, to apostles, to governors. I've interviewed prominent figures, yet some of the most profound comments I got were from children who just wanted a loving home and family of their own.
But without a loving and caring family, they can't get a good education in the heart as well.
For years, I was inspired featuring the brightest and most talented high school distinguished students in the area each week. And I was touched by the contributions of the great neighbors in our communities.
If you were going to interview Jay Hildebrandt, what would you most want to know?
I had the opportunity to interview TV stars.
Awe-inspiring type of thing, awesome event.
As well as ordinary people amazed by seeing the stars in the sky during the eclipse.
Right behind me, you can really see the extent of the flooding.
There were stories about disasters.
Just come check us at the Millennium Ball a little later.
As well as stories about celebrations that happen once every 1,000 years. Plenty of fires to report on with flames in the background. As well as focusing on flames at sobering candlelight vigils.
There may be an attack underway on Baghdad. It's uncertain.
Sometimes our newscasts had to focus on the start of wars. Other times on the rocket's red glare in celebration of our freedoms.
And so I looked back on those old tapes, realizing what historic things I was able to talk about as an anchor in a small market like this. And again, it goes back to my premise that people want information, and to be able to be the one with my co-anchor and the reporters to bring them that information was very rewarding and meaningful. That's one of the things I have enjoyed about my job.
Good evening, everyone. The immediate shock is now starting to wear off, but now an incredible sadness is settling in America.
We are a country under attack, and we still don't know who exactly is the enemy.
Well, I remember getting a call from my wife, who was a teacher, and saying, wake up. I usually slept in because I worked late the night before. You've got to see what's going on. And I was just glued to the television. And I called into work, and at first we thought, what can we do with this? This story is happening in New York. But as the day progressed, we found out that there were a lot of local angles to this, too. They weren't letting airplanes fly, so we sent reporters to the airport. There were lots of extra security measures at what we called back then the INEL. And so there were plenty of local angles and just reaction from people. As you recall, people were just shocked and devastated. And again, it was a situation where we were providing that information, or helping at least to provide some of that information to the viewers so that they knew what was happening. And yet, we were impacted as well emotionally. You think journalists have to kind of step aside and not get involved in the story or take sides on a story. But this is one where we really felt it. I recall that. I remember looking back at our tape of that night, and Carol Hona, sitting next to me here, said, "We are a nation at war
and we still don't really know who we are at war with. So there was all that uncertainty, and it was one of the biggest news stories that I had ever been involved in, and may still be to this day.
Even intermittent snow showers didn't put a damper on festivities, especially for Republicans who hadn't seen one of theirs sworn in as governor in nearly a quarter of a century.
I have enjoyed politics. Just covering the legislature and covering elections and talking to the governor or the mayor or whoever. I just find that fascinating and enjoyable, and again, that's the kind of thing that gets me excited.
Jay Hildebrandt is standing by live now at the State House with a rundown of the day's events. Jay?
Well, Laurel, as is often the case at the beginning of a new session, there's a real spirit of optimism.
1988 was the first legislative session I covered. Governor Andrus focused on boosting the quality of education in Idaho. He said we lost out on two major projects, including the superconducting super collider at the INL.
In both cases, quality of schools was a critical factor in the competition. In both cases, we lost.
I sat down with longtime legislator Brent Hill, who is the Senate President pro tem. He says education is still a big issue, but we've made great progress recently.
In the last 5 years, we've increased public education funding over $100 million each of those 5 years. So we're, at $500 million more than we were even 5 years ago. And of course, that may not mean a lot to some people, but that's a 35% increase over 5 years.
I will present to you a comprehensive plan to remove tens of millions of dollars from the tax burden of homeowners.
Property tax relief has been a tough issue through the years, too.
We in the legislature have been involved in trying to reduce property taxes wherever we can. In fact, as you look back, even when we implemented the income tax in Idaho, it was considered a property tax relief act to take the burden off that and shift them to other types of taxes.
Jay is going to join us now from Boise. Jay, what's up?
Well, good evening from the State House, Carol.
In 1993 at the legislature, Governor Andrus was adamant about banning
waste, which they call spent fuel,
from reactors outside Idaho to be sent to the INL, something that didn't set well with then House Speaker Mike Simpson.
I didn't like the tone or tenor of what he said. Generally, very negative and hostile toward what's one of the premier nuclear research facilities in the country.
Hill says time has shown the INL has made a great contribution to finding ways to better handle nuclear waste, but he understands Andrus's concerns about environmental safety.
And I think he kept our feet to the fire on those things, and I think that was appropriate.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
Even intermittent snow showers didn't put a damper on festivities, especially for Republicans who hadn't seen one of theirs sworn in as governor in nearly a quarter of a century.
In 1995, Phil Batt began an era of Republican occupancy of the governor's office and listed his focus.
Education, water, criminal justice, preserving our traditional Western lifestyle, and protecting and enhancing the lot of our children.
When Governor Batt came up with his top priorities there, they were the same top priorities we have now and the ones we had even before he came around.
It was the biggest deal in my life, I suppose, when it comes to politics, to be able to have a one-on-one interview with George H.W. Bush back in, I think it was 1988 in Twin Falls when we were covering a campaign trip there. And he did one-on-one interviews with several people. And just to think that I was interviewing the President of the United States it just kind of blew my mind, and I was kind of intimidated by the whole thing and very nervous, but he just put me right at ease, answered my questions, very nicely, just like it was a regular conversation with anyone else. And so that, I remember that to this day. Other ones, I had a one-on-one interview with Mitt Romney when he was campaigning, and that was exciting to be able to talk to a presidential candidate also, and just to be in that situation where I was talking right to them. And again, he was very gracious. He answered all my questions very well, and it was a memorable occasion there too.
Wednesday's child is full of woe. Wednesday's child has nowhere to go.
I would have to say that this has been the highlight of my career, some of the Wednesday Child success stories. Back in 1985, Kimberly was my first Wednesday's child in foster care, hoping to be adopted into a loving family.
Nice, kind, like me.
The Copelands in Salmon saw her on Wednesday's Child and adopted her.
Oh, she was cute. And I just knew she'd fit in because of animals and stuff.
Well, it's kind of nice to have a home.
We really love her. She's been really a joy.
Scott was a little boy who didn't smile much when I first met him.
Would you like to be adopted into a family?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I want one. Because I'm sometimes lonely.
The next time I saw Scott, he was all smiles. The Pruitts adopted him.
I know that they love me.
You know that they love you? How about you? Do you love them?
Yeah.
Do you? So how do you feel about Scott?
I love him. We're getting just real close.
I visited again when Scott was 16. He and his dad were fixing up an old car for him to drive.
As you can see, I'm going to be doing a little interior work on it.
I'll never forget Kelly with her contagious smile, even though she'd had a tough childhood.
So what would you like to see happen with you as far as a family?
That I'd be put in a home that we can get along real good. Dad, we're not running a race.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get out of
Kelly got her wish. John and Sally Gamby saw Kelly that night on Wednesday's Child from their home in the hills near Ingham and knew they wanted to adopt her. They haven't regretted their decision for a moment.
I never thought it was going to ever change for me, but it really did. I have a better life than I did last time I was on Wednesday's Child.
So you want to be in a family of your own then? How bad?
Really bad.
Kenny's wish came true. The Wards had been thinking about adopting him, and then they saw Kenny on Wednesday's Child.
I got chills and it kind of brought tears to my eyes, and I said, hey, this one's it.
Saunders right. When we saw him, it just felt right. It was good.
They're great. The best people I've ever met.
I think it would be just absolutely amazing if there was actually a real family out there that cared for me.
They actually do smell good.
I reconnected with Cassie almost 10 years later. I learned she'd been adopted by a loving family who saw her on Wednesday's Child.
I just think what you guys are doing is absolutely amazing. It's, finding kids' homes, and I just want to thank you guys for giving me that opportunity.
Wednesday's Child.
To know that a child that I had gotten to know for a couple hours and edited the piece and aired it on television, someone saw it, and just time after time they would say, I saw that child in Wednesday's Child, and I just knew they were meant to be in our family. And it just kind of sent shivers up my spine just to think how special that was, and how that we had played a part in that, with these bringing this child into this loving family and just changing their life. It was just one of the things that when I started this job, I wanted to be able to make a difference, and reaching all these people in a positive way to do that. And Wednesday's Child certainly was able to do that for me. So you ready for the season, TJ?
Yeah, I'm way excited and ready.
All right. TJ Thacker is happy to be on the football team for another season.
I really enjoy doing Distinguished Student. After Wednesday's Child, that was probably one of my favorite regular reports that I did. And this was through the United Dairymen of Idaho. They sponsored this, and they got nominations sent in after contacting the principals of the different schools and the guidance counselors. And then we would choose from those that came in week after week which senior in high school we would focus on and do a Distinguished Student of the Week report. Devin Bean is the kind of guy who does look at the bright side of life. One of the activities that brightens up life for Devin is music. And it was just always very invigorating to go into that kind of a setting in a high school. And high school seniors are especially excited about finishing up their final year and moving on. And we would showcase their talents, whether it was debate or musical instrument, or they were in a play, or they were in sports. We'd say, this person really has contributed a lot to this high school. Generally, they had to have really good grades as well and be involved in the school.
What are you doing?
You gotta pick out the vines and all the rotten potatoes. Just get them out.
Jalissa Blaser grew up on the family potato farm. As long as she can remember, she's helped out in one way or another on the farm.
well, you're not spoiled, but you learn how to work really hard.
And to just rub shoulders week after week with these outstanding young people who are seniors in high school was a real pleasure. Yeah, you know, as reporters and journalists, we need to have a certain objectivity about everything that we do, but there's no question that we all have our different special interests. I have felt strongly about my faith, and when an opportunity has come up to do news stories on that, I don't use it to proselyte or anything like that, but we do have, you know, about half the population are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So those are legitimate news stories, and to be involved in those has been a really great experience for me. I've been there when temples have been dedicated or ground has been broken. I've been there to interview apostles, and I've been there when major historic things have happened in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Been in Salt Lake and been able to be there to cover events when a prophet has died, or there's a new prophet that has come about, or a new apostles, things like that. And it's been very rewarding to be able to do that. I just feel good to be a little bit more involved in that in a journalistic way, but it still has some special meaning to me to do things like that.
In the next few days, it's expected that leaders of the LDS Church will meet within the walls of the Salt Lake Temple and ordain Gordon B. Hinckley as president of the Mormon Church.
And it's also kind of fun. At one point I wanted to be a reporter in Salt Lake, and I would get to do stand-ups with the Salt Lake Temple over my shoulder, so that was kind of fun.
Back in the mid-1980s, I remember doing stories on the growth of Ricks College when the clothing and hairstyles were a lot different. One person who has seen some of that growth firsthand is current BYU Idaho President Henry J. Eyring. When Eyring was in junior high, he moved to Rexburg when his father became president of Ricks College.
For me, it was just a 6-year stint with my dad. And I don't know how much I learned about university administration, but I certainly learned to love this place.
We at Ricks College are embarking upon a voyage that will be filled with high adventure.
Covering the inauguration of David A. Bednar in 1997, little did any of us know the extent of that adventure, with the announcement 3 years later that the 2-year college would become a 4-year institution, Brigham Young University, Idaho.
Jay, did anyone have an inkling this big step was about to take place?
Carol, they absolutely did not till they heard about it at 8 o'clock this morning. It was a total surprise. They're using words like stunned and shocked here at Ricks College today.
It's historic. It's overwhelming. It's the most exciting thing that one could ever be involved in.
Yes, and I remember when they became BYU Idaho, it was such a surprise because no one had expected that. In fact, everyone had always said, the leaders of the church and of the school, you know, this will remain a junior college, and all of a sudden, boom, there's this announcement made with very little warning, even to the people involved there, that this was going to happen. So I remember rushing up to Rexburg to be there for that announcement and being surprised at what was happening, but excited about the change, thinking we're going to have another 4-year university right here in eastern Idaho, and that will be a real benefit to the area.
Planning for the transition in 2001, President Bednar told me he didn't want to lose the characteristics Ricks College was famous for.
The attention to students, the caring and the concern.
There would be no professor tenure or pressure to publish, so all their attention could be focused on the students. The announcement was big.
But hearts were warm today as President Hinckley himself visited for the dedication.
Enrollment grew, and so did the campus. In October of 2002, Church President Gordon B. Hinckley was honored as a building named after him was dedicated, the first since the school became BYU Idaho.
Jay Hildebrandt attended the inauguration of the new president there, Kim Clark. What was the mood like, Jay?
Oh, Carol, the mood here was absolutely euphoric.
A lot of attention on BYU Idaho in 2008 when the head of the Harvard Business School, Kim B. Clark, became president.
It was just astounding. The level of prestige that was associated with him.
Every one of the seats was filled, faculty and students alike wanting to know who their new president would be. Henry J. Eyring. Over his lifetime, President Eyring has seen explosive growth here. Between on-campus and online programs, they are currently serving 38,000 students. In 1977, I began my professional career at KMVT in Twin Falls. We used large typewriters to compose our scripts.
I think computers are what really has changed everything the most because it changes
everything. When the computers came into the picture, it changed how we typed our scripts. Instead of the large type typewriters, they were on computers. Eventually the rundowns were all on computer, and it was so much easier to manipulate everything that way. And then we were able to edit on computer instead of, you know, reel-to-reel films or videotapes and things like that. And
what I'm doing is taking the video from this top deck here and recording it to this bottom deck here. And in order to have control of these two decks, they are hooked up to this little, I don't know what it's called, but this is basically our mixer, video and audio, etc.
And it made things so much easier. You could do so much more with it. I remember years ago we got our first computerized editing thing, nonlinear editor in our production department, $80,000. Right now, iMovie can do a better job than that could do at that point. And so it's been a real blessing to the industry, I think, in lots of ways to be able to be computerized.
Stephen Bonney, why did you decide to adopt these wild horses?
And all our reports were shot on film. It was expensive to develop, so we could only shoot about 5 minutes worth of film a day.
But many farmers say with prices as they are, they just can't make ends meet anymore.
I remember covering the farmers' tractorcade in Burley in 1979, where they protested low prices. It was my first story shooting videotape, and I was so excited to shoot as much as I wanted.
Good night.
Back then we had some unique news sets.
Got up into the 60s and 70s and some...
And definitely not high-tech weather maps. It was exciting to get a more sophisticated looking news set.
69 degrees in Houston in the summer.
The weather map was bigger but still used magnetic numbers. We had an early generation graphic machine to show some weather statistics.
With our live camera. Bruce, what's the biggest concern down there tonight?
In the early 80s at Channel 33 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, we had the first live truck in town to bring viewers live reports from the field. We thought that was really cool. Graphics looked a little better.
Sunny skies across the lower Mississippi states and on into the south central part of the country.
And we used markers for the weather maps with our own artwork, if you can call it that. I think I liked the magnetic numbers better. On to Channel 8 in the mid-80s, where we still used typewriters, but soon got some computers with word processors, so we could at least correct our typos. Our teleprompter consisted of our scripts taped together on a conveyor belt with a camera looking down at it. We saw the scripts on the monitor on the camera. The field cameras had cables going to separate tape decks, which sometimes caused some problems. You can see the old weather maps Ken Torrey was still using when I first came to Channel 8. But then came green screen technology, so the weatherman could point to a blank wall and the map magically appeared on TV. Word processing programs gave way to script writing programs that laid out the whole newscast. Editing from one videotape to another videotape gave way to the first computer video editing programs. The media we've used over the years has changed too. We went from film to these 3/4-inch tapes. After that, we used these high 8 tapes, then DVC Pro, then Mini DV, then these memory sticks, and finally, SD cards. The televisions themselves have changed. Our control room went from being filled with the old-style monitors to big-screen HD TVs. And the newscasts have moved from 4:3 aspect ratio to widescreen 16:9. Things have certainly changed a lot since my first experience 60 years ago on television on The Cookie Show.
1, 2, 3, go. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this presentation. Our little video is going to rock the whole nation. Let's rock, let's roll. You had beautiful conditions for us to all see the eclipse tonight.
Yeah, we cleared just in a nick of time, but, well, Jay, that also spells trouble. Look, I'm ecliptic. It's amazing. I'm telling you. I always wanted to lose weight right before your very eyes. Well, I just did.
You know, I certainly tried to be professional. I think maybe there's once or twice where I just, like you say, got the giggles and just had to go to a commercial break just because of something funny that was said. But, you know, I think people see that you're human. You don't want to be unprofessional, but, you know, sometimes people are human and things happen. Story that may force you to think a little bit about extra hygiene in your kitchen this time of year.
And a look back at some of the stories.
What are you studying for there?
I'm studying for Newsline.
Okay. All right. You just go ahead and do your business there.
Okay,
I'll take it from here. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
That's all right. We'll clue you in next time. Love to get the boss.
Joe Mar gets to not have your storm teammate radar. Oh, are you kidding me?
Well, there's one time, I don't know why I said this, but I was doing a story about a rocket that had just taken off from the Earth and was going to the edge of the solar system. And I said it was going past the moon.
With great excitement, ended in a bit of disappointment for those INL workers who built the space battery that's inside the New Horizons spacecraft.
The mission consists of a flyby of Jupiter and then on to Pocatello.
Carol said, Jay, I think you mean Pluto.
Pluto.
Oh, yeah.
All the way to Pluto.
Pluto. The only unexplored planet in our solar system is Pluto.
Night after night, we read the teleprompter, and we pretty well got that mastered. But it's a fun challenge and exciting to be able to look away from the teleprompter and just be able to ad lib and to just go with the flow and whatever is happening, and to have that all work out well.
It works, Carol?
No, Jay, they want you to read it.
All right. Thousands are expected to show up at the Bannock County Fairgrounds tomorrow.
My turn. All right. Want to fill you in.
But we can tell you that the future of TV will depend on what is happening locally. What's so funny?
Locally. Honus live at the Eastern Idaho State Fair, where we're enjoying the people, the fun, the food, and of course, really, the food. Yesterday, how's it look today, Jay?
Yeah, I'll tell you. Oh, I'm sorry, Carol. I just have to get my earpiece back in here. It just popped out at the most inopportune time. But anyway, we are here at the Eastern Idaho State Fair.
We're live. Jamie.
So Jamie, tell us again how it's going to look like.
Jamie. I'm actually Michael.
Sorry.
No, people actually think we're brothers because we got the same kind of haircut.
I didn't call you Crystal at least. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, people have asked, are you brothers with Jamie?
Back in now with Storm Team Mates, Jamie Cagle.
Actually, I have Storm Team's Michael Coates filling in for the vacationing Jamie Cagle.
And wouldn't it be nice to zap a migraine with just a little bit of hairspray? We've got the newest in headache medicine to tell you about.
I don't think it's hairspray. It's a little bit another kind of spray.
It's a nose spray. Thanks, Jay. Yeah.
And he was wearing a black hooded sweatshirt with a baseball cap and gloves.
Go to your double
We'll have more for you coming up at 6.
Stand by to turn
okay,
to 2.
Thank you, Haley. Well, I'll look forward to hearing your report at 6 o'clock with more details. Hey, Ken, guess what? We're back on.
Oh, hey.
We're back on.
How are you? Good to see you.
I know you want to join us for the Get You Going forecast.
So
the cast of thousands gathering behind us.
That's right. We've got Ask the Doc coming up. Todd's back there. Hi, Todd, and the whole group here. So
at 10 o'clock, find out what's being done to help get our kids on their lives back together.
And a surprise boom sends a funny smell into the air. Find out what.
Well, the shorter the better is our belief, so we'll end it here and keep this video brief.
I can't count the number of people that have come and gone. This is a smaller market, so people will generally come here right out of college to get a job. It's rewarding to see the progress they make. Sometimes I have to say I wonder if they're going to make it, but some of them actually just get over the initial awkwardness and stage fright and become very successful. I can think of some people that have gone far in this business, and you never would have thought it by their first couple of weeks on the air here, but they just persisted, and it's rewarding to see that and to be a small part of that. To, try to be a mentor, give them a little bit of advice here and there.
Laurel Porter here at KGW in Portland. I co-anchor with Jay at KIFI in the 80s and 90s.
Hello from Santa Barbara. I'm former Local News 8 meteorologist Deborah Smith.
And I'm Mark Danielson. I'm the former general manager for the KIFI News Group and NPG of Idaho.
This is a much older and a much grayer Adam Mikulich coming to you from Salt Lake City.
Hey, it's Akiko Fujita. I worked in the Pocatello Bureau from 2002 to 2004.
This is Peter Cook in Washington, D.C. I was lucky enough to work with Jay Hildebrandt from 1991 to 1993.
Hey, it's Emma Jade. I worked with you from 2008 to 2010.
Yeah, Scott Bemis checking in from Fresno, California, where I'm now a sports anchor for both the CBS and NBC affiliates.
Hey, Brooke Hale here. I worked there at Local News 8 from 2002 to 2005.
It's Brenda Baumgartner-Stanley.
I remember when I started work at KIFI in 1992, how welcoming and how generous you were. I really appreciated everything that you did for me.
My name is Darian Laird, and I worked at KIFI between 2010 and 2011 as a morning Anchorman reporter and weather forecaster.
Do you remember us? Bill, Danielle, your favorite meteorologist?
And your favorite director, I'm pretty sure.
The studio and newsroom and faces have changed over the years, but through it all, I've been blessed to work with wonderful people both in front of the camera and those behind the scenes. I think I'll miss the association with the people here. I think probably mostly with Carol. She's been sitting next to me here for 30 years and has become a very good friend. Our families know each other very well. We've had kids that are the same age, and we raised at the same time and could commiserate about problems that they were having.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It was back in 1984 that Jay began here after jobs in Twin Falls and Indiana. He had a few different co-anchors before I arrived on the scene in 1990.
Good afternoon. Welcome to First News. I'm Jay Hildebrandt.
And I'm Carol Honus, filling in for Susan Furness.
I was just planning to fill in for a few months while Susan Furness was on maternity leave, but I stuck around and went through all the new hairstyles, and there were new sets as we went through the decade of the 90s.
And Jay is going to join us now from Boise. Jay, what's up?
Well, good evening from the State House. Carol, it's...
Together we covered state politics over the years.
And now the real work begins for this new governor, Brad Little. Reporting live in Boise, I'm Jay Hildebrandt. Back to you, Carol.
We reported on 7 presidential elections as a team.
In Idaho voters supported President Bush, but certainly not across the nation.
It's been a tight presidential race all night long. What's the latest now?
Well, Jay and Carol, earlier we told everyone that it looked like definitely Gore was going to take Florida. That is not necessarily the case.
How do you feel? What direction is it going?
Well, I'm shocked. I'm a little amazed because Mr. Trump has defied every logical political commandment.
A lot of changes are coming to television in eastern Idaho.
The network switch from NBC to ABC in 1996, that was memorable. It included a trip to New York so we could do promos with the network stars.
Followed by the Idaho 8 evening news at 6 with Jay Hildebrandt and Carol Honus.
This kind of will give you an idea of what one of the fancier big balls will be like in eastern Idaho as we ring in the year 2000.
It's a very elegant affair.
We rang in Y2K together with live coverage of the Millennial Ball. And who could ever forget 9/11, when we sat at the anchor desk to report that tragedy?
We are a country under attack, and we still don't know who exactly is the enemy.
Over the years, when there was breaking news, I often tossed to you, Jay, where it was happening.
Well, Carol, as you can see right behind me here, some fence posts got burned.
How is Jefferson County faring, Jay?
Well, Jefferson County is still pretty soggy here, Carol, and here on the south side, the Manan Butte, looking to the south, you can get a pretty good idea.
And then there were the fun stories, like when we did Trading Spaces, I helped remodel a room in your home to a kid's bedroom, and you did my bedroom in a Western theme.
Oh my gosh! Oh, that's so cute! Oh, I love this! I'm shocked.
So, a lot of people at the fair today, Carol.
Well, that's that good exercise for that health segment coming up, right?
We have covered 29 state fairs together over the years.
We are live once again at the Eastern Idaho State Fair.
Yes, I remember it was always a challenge at the state fair, especially when we did the whole newscast there some years, because we didn't have a teleprompter. And so we had our papers on a clipboard to keep the wind from blowing them away. And it was always a fun challenge. Carol and I would sometimes have a contest to see just how far we could go without looking down at our script. And sometimes it would be one sentence or 2 or 3, and then the video would come up and we could look down at our script and no one would know because there was video going. But that was kind of a fun, special challenge, and it just got you out of the routine of being in the studio, and I really enjoyed that too. The State Fair is the one week of the year when we really can interact almost on a daily basis with our viewers. You have the 4th of July parade.
There they are, the fireworks have begun. You can see them right behind us here from the roof of the Shiloh. Spectacular.
Perhaps one of the most spectacular, breathtaking events for us was reporting live from the roof of the Shiloh in 2005 for the fireworks.
We'll get out of the way again. You enjoy the fireworks.
More of the Melaleuca Freedom Celebration right now.
We have such a magnificent fireworks display in Idaho Falls, and so at the times when I needed to work on the 4th of July, although I must admit I tried to get it off when I could, I would try to be assigned to the live shop for the fireworks, because then I could see them, I could be just kind of close to my family, and they were magnificent. And one year in particular, we got to go onto the roof of the Shiloh Inn and be up there to watch the fireworks and to video them from there. And it was a perspective that I had never seen before from the ground. It's being right up there, right next to them. It was thrilling. It was just awesome to be able to do that. One of the perks of my job. Day after day, having people come up and say, you know, we watch you on television, and you know, sometimes they'll shake your hand, sometimes they'll give you a hug, you know, whatever the case may be. It's nice to be able to, again, to interact personally with the viewers, because again, in the studio, there's just no one else in here except us, and so to interact with those people that are our viewers is very rewarding. And they'll say, you know, we watch you guys every night, you're just like family. And I think, you know, what an honor that is, that people consider us like their extended family.
So for tonight's Anchors Away News Extra, I'll show you our favorite Hildebrandt family getaway. Hey, here we're ready for a big adventure. How you doing, Emily?
I don't think most people don't think about this, because at home and when they're turning on a newscast, it's at 6 or 10 or 11, depending on the time zone they're in. You're at work, so when everyone's home, kind of relaxing, unwinding from the day, you're just kind of getting all rolling. How have you managed that with your life and with your family?
Well, you know, it's worked out fairly well. When the children were younger, you know, I'd be home with them all morning long, be able to go sledding with them and do things that some dads maybe who worked later wouldn't be able to do. Then when they got into school, I always made sure that I lived close enough to the station that I can go home for a good dinner break, spend a little quality time with the kids before I have to go back later. I take the time to spend some time with the family, and then on the weekends, I've been fortunate to have the weekends off for the most part of my career.
So growing up with Jay Hildebrandt as my dad, my friends would always ask me, so what's it like to have a famous father? I would always say, well, I don't know. What's it like to not have a famous father? To me, he was just always my dad, and it was really great to see him on TV, to support him, and to have him come into my home every night as I was going to bed.
Growing up as the son of the local anchorman, I would say was, you know, it's interesting, a little different than I think a lot of people, just because you have that name, and that name, whenever somebody hears the last name Hildebrandt, they would always bring it up, and it's not a common last name, and so I think that was always kind of interesting. But you know, it was fun. It was fun because you heard a lot of people, you know, talking about it as far as, oh, he's the son of Jay Hildebrandt, and you know, the son of an anchor. I always thought it was pretty cool growing up with that with that name and that title as well, the son of the Jay Hildebrandt.
The same question a lot. Are you Jay Hildebrandt's daughter? and you know, at first it was just kind of, it was funny because it becomes a routine that's something that everyone asks you when they find out your last name. And then after a while I realized how proud I was to say yes, because there was something always positive that would come after it. It would always be, oh, you know, I saw his Wednesday's Child report that he does. Does anyone ever get adopted from any of those? Or it would be, oh yeah, you know, he did a Distinguished Student Award, you know, to my friend or daughter or son or someone, you know, and there was always something really positive that people had to say after they found out that, you know, Jay Hildebrandt was my dad.
I really enjoyed it and really thought it was cool, and it was something that I could kind of brag about to my friends, and there may have even been a couple occasions where it helped me get a date with a nice young lady too, so thank you for that.
One of my earliest memories is just kind of starting to understand that when we'd go places like the mall or anywhere in town, that it would take a lot longer, and people would continually stop my dad and you say, oh, aren't you Jay Hildebrandt? Oh my gosh, you're Jay Hildebrandt. Oh, can we have your autograph, or whatever it was? And I think it took me a little bit to really understand that wasn't something that was that didn't happen to everybody's parents or everybody's dad.
People ask me often, do people recognize you? And I say, thank goodness they do, because if they didn't, I'd be really worried. It would mean they weren't watching us. And I have not had a problem with people coming up and saying, hey, you're Jay Hildebrandt, you know, you're the news guy, and we watch you all the time. And I just find it kind of gratifying that they recognize me and that they're watching. You know, I've been thinking just exactly what you do on your last night on the air, and being in the news business, I feel a little awkward if I'm the subject of the news instead of the reporter of the news. But in reality, someone who's been on the air for 35 years in the market, it becomes somewhat of a newsworthy thing, I suppose, when they leave, just like when Steve Cannon left several months ago. And so I've been trying to think of what I might say, and I think I will just want to say what a great career I've had. I will want to thank the people of Eastern Idaho for all their support during this time. You know, I've just been incredibly fortunate to be in a career that I have enjoyed. So many people will change careers or change locations, but I'm one person, I never imagined doing anything other than what I'm doing as a career. I never wanted to go into public relations or do anything else other than be on the news, be a reporter and anchor and a journalist. And so I just find myself incredibly lucky to have been able to do that, but also to do it in a place where I've been surrounded by wonderful coworkers and a wonderful community. Again, thanks to the people of Eastern Idaho is what I will say my last day, for making this the kind of place to raise a family, to have a career. And they've been so kind, you know, coming up as we talked before and saying, you know, I watch you every night. I even had the other day, I was at a restaurant, a woman came up with her 4-year-old son, and he said, I watch you every night. And I said, you really do? And she said, he does. He doesn't actually watch at night because it's too late for him, but we record the 10 o'clock news because he loves watching the news the next day. And those are the kind of experiences that I just find very gratifying, overwhelming, humbling. Just all of the well wishes that have come in since I announced my retirement are again overwhelming. All the many people on social media and in person congratulating me and just wishing me well in my retirement. And again, I'm incredibly fortunate and blessed to have had a career here in Eastern Idaho. And people ask me why I'm retiring, and this is the reason. They've got my wife and my children, 15 grandchildren here.
Ah, finally. I've been waiting for a little choke up there.
Yes, so I've loved every minute of this, but it's time to devote more time to these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and Jay would tell you he's overwhelmed and he's humbled by all the well wishes he's received. So I just want to show you real quick. Here's Jay's wife. We've shared him for 35 years. This is Sally, and Sally's often said, "People think you're married." Well, we're not. This is the real wife.
No, we're not.
She's a good friend too. So
you know, Sally is just incredible. When I was going to BYU in Provo, and I was on KBYU television. They did a newscast every evening at 6 o'clock in the evening. And we weren't married at that time, but she lived right next door to me when we had started dating. And she would walk like the 1.5 miles up to the library because she didn't have a television, just so she could watch me on television that night on KBYU TV, and then walk all the way back. She has been my most loyal fan and supporter through all of this. She hardly ever misses watching a newscast. She's been the one that has to be there for the kids every evening when they came home, and just have the hour or so with me and take care of all of the other running around and the things that you know you do when you're a parent and your kids are involved in lots of activities. And yeah, so I just can't say enough about her.
You know, hard for me to say goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to.
I will miss a certain adrenaline rush just coming out on the set and that kind of thing. And but there are things I won't miss. I won't miss the fact that I miss other things because you're obligated to have a job. I mean, the way that I see it is there are different seasons in a person's life. And this past 42 years altogether has been my season to have a career and go to work every day. And I've enjoyed my work. But I think the time has come to start the next season, the season where it's more of a full-time husband and father and especially grandparent, one of the things that I enjoy the most, and have time to do those things. And that'll be the season that I will be approaching here. So often, because of my work schedule, I miss things in the evenings, especially that my kids were doing. I'd catch 10 minutes of a soccer game on my dinner break, or a choir concert or something like that. And I wish that I had a little bit more time on a schedule that permitted me to do that. And I'll be able to do those things now. This is the entire family. I have 5 kids and 15 grandchildren. And some couldn't be here, but it's just great to have these guys here with me. And We love them very much, and I've loved the viewers, but I love these guys a little bit more.
Oh, I know.
So we'll be spending some quality time with them, and that'll be wonderful. Well, so for one last time, thanks for joining us. Good night.
Goodbye.
Pending the utilities company. The city spokesperson said there was no timeline to fulfill obligations or and the affected customers. None of the current city officials were in office when the city added an extra charge.
Grant, this is News Center 33. President Reagan tonight laid to rest any doubts about his commitment to you.
Coming up tonight on Newsline 530, we'll take a look at why the Twin Falls Home Builders Association is suing the city of Twin, the area in the Magic Valley that was hurt by the storm. In Jerome County, one boy out in the field burning weeds when the hailstorm
We begin
hit.
our Great Neighbor series with a woman who understands the importance of volunteering for good causes.
4 white Los Angeles police officers are found not guilty of using excessive force on black motorist Rodney King. That was seen on home videotape at Rock the Nation, and Phil Schuman is standing by with a live report in L.A.
So
Phil.
the one-room schoolhouse isn't just a thing of the past. It lives on here at Three Creek, Idaho. For Newsline, I'm Jay Hildebrandt.